All right, welcome. Cool. That's fascinating. It always works, at least with Agile guys. So, the topic I want to talk about with you, I think everybody of you experienced in one or the other way. So, you might be part of a Scrum team working with externals, but you had no influence how the heck they came into your team. Or you have to work with software or services that was decided and selected from somewhere else, right? And some other struggles I want to talk about today is, as an Agile coach, we often and still need to make our way up in the hierarchy until we get the management support, right? So today, I want to inspire you in all those topics, how you can get immediately on the leadership level, how you can get to the next stage of business agility, even cross companies. I structured my talk this way, that I will tell you a lot of stories. So no boring theory or something. You're in the lucky room. So, and obviously, there will be also a bit of a story with Tesla, because that just sells. All right, so I got fascinated during the COVID crisis by this image. You know what that is, this blurry image on the left side? That's the harbor of Shanghai, and each of the dots is a container ship. So they couldn't access or leave Shanghai harbor because of the harbor was in a lockdown. Now that had a lot of consequences on the supply chains all over the place. And one of the industries that was hit quite hard was the automotive. I was observing the current chip shortage for a long time now. And I want to tell you about, just to get into the topic, so I would get our thinking outside of our company more into a supply chain or even an ecosystem with this case and then further cases coming along. So how the heck could such a small thing like a chip hinder us? And just in the US, by the way, Bloomberg recently reported that more than 300,000 cars could not be delivered because of these small chips are not available. So GM and Ford, those together. Now let's elaborate. So from an Agile point of view, that's a catastrophe, right? Because what we want to do is ship early and often. And that seems like a broken system. So just where does this come from? And I made this very simple here. If you are not in lean and supply chains and so forth. So just as an example, Ford, I didn't realize the car manufacturers, and by the way, all the traditional car manufacturers, they're more like design and assembly companies. They're highly reliable on their upstream suppliers. So you could think of that, oh, okay, I got this problem with the chip shortage because it was just this event of the lockdown in the harbor. But that's one of the reasons, but it's not the reason. Because if we think about supply chains, it's taken to the other extreme. So based on lean, we want to focus on efficiency. That's correct. But the people and the companies has taken that like too much on a cost focus. So what happened during the COVID crisis was they said, there's a pandemic, there's a crisis coming up, so our prediction of sales was set lower. So what they did, and that's a very traditional way of thinking, they stopped the order in the chip manufacturers. Now, the downside is majority of the chips are produced in Asia. And the more advanced semiconductors, the 5 nanometer chips, just 2 companies are capable to deliver that. So if you stop the order, then it's very hard to get back to their demand, right? So that was the first very traditional thinking, the first big mistake. Now the second mistake was that they have no stock because it's all just in time, right? And the third, and that's not a mistake, they were just overwhelmed by the situation. They are not capable to switch the vendor, the supplier, within no time. It usually takes, for complex sourcing cases, it takes, like a car manufacturer, takes them 6 to 12 months to find, select, contract, and integrate those components in their supply chain. Now, as a consequence, we have a lot of cars on stock, so they started to do weird things. They bought washing machines to just get the chips out of them. Right? They sacrificed all the modules because the high seller modules, so that they still could deliver at least a bit of it. But the root cause was not changed. Now, obviously, Tesla does a lot of things good, and also in this situation, they did something we would call following more of an agile mindset. So they also struggled because, as you might know, building a chip manufacturing is very, very expensive. It's 10 to 20 billions. So even Elon Musk can't afford that. Maybe he can, but he won't. So they are also depending on those 2 companies. But then first, they never stopped the supply, the order. They said, well, it's a bunch of chips, you know, and we have over there, we have a room, so let's put them there. Second, they also start to sacrifice some of the models, the Model X, which is not a high seller, that they still could deliver Model 3. But the most impressive and most agile thing they did, they also sourced chips from another company, from other companies, because they were able to reprogram the operating system of those chips. Where the traditional car manufacturers, they can't. That's all outsourced, even that. So long story short, currently, that's my personal definition of business agility, we're focusing, we have kind of 2 movements. One is, how can we become more agile as a person, our behaviors, all the agile leadership topics and movements. And the second movement is, how can we scale all these good practices that worked so beautiful on a team level to a company level. Now, what we are foreseeing is we need to think even much beyond that. So you are as agile as your partners, your suppliers, even your competitors are. So if you are agile but your suppliers aren't, in fact, you are not agile. And what we have seen is at this intersections, so if here is another company and here another, they might be even interconnected, some of them might work with you, and at these intersections, we have new functions like procurement, sales, account management, partner management, commercial functions with high impact, as we just saw. And what I want to say, what I want to inspire you, and I will repeat that over and over again, it's an opportunity. Get in touch with those folks. If you're an internal Agile coach, Scrum Master, get in touch with them. If you're part of a transformation team, include them. So, yeah, even got some endorsement from Jeff. We are currently writing a paper about it. So Avi Schneier, Jeff Sutherland, and myself. It will be released soon. And yeah, stay tuned on that. So what is an example of a company that went all Agile, all in? A very good example is Haier. Oops. You might have heard of them. It's a Chinese company. They recently bought G Appliances over here in the US. And what they did is mainly they followed two principles. Zero distance to the customer, and every entrepreneur, every employee, everyone is an entrepreneur. And they have currently over 80,000 employees, and they've formed more than 4,000 micro businesses interconnecting between companies. From a business perspective, also makes sense. They have the last 10 years, every year, more than 20% growth in revenue and profits. So it's very successful. Now, what's in for, oh yeah, a little animation on that. So this sounds like huge, and in Agile, if we learn something, we need to start small. So where can we start? And I have identified 3 challenges that I recommend you to start. I will introduce you into more details into those with examples. So let's go really back to the roots. At its core, it's a Scrum team, it's an Agile team, a cross-functional team, however you name it. And we need to ask ourselves, we have these 4 roles. Who is accountable for the suppliers? In a perfect world, nobody else is deciding who will join your team, which tools you're going to use, which services you're going to use. It will be the team or team of teams, whatever it is. So I would like to invite you, hope that works, a short poll. Who do you think should be accountable for suppliers in Scrum? And don't be shy, there's no right or wrong, the Scrum guide doesn't tell us it. Cool. While you're still voting, so I have an opinion, and maybe that's correct, right? But even better than that, having it clear, maybe once in a while it will become part of the Scrum Guide, you need to start a conversation internally. If the people in your Scrum teams should not anymore complain about contracts they are not supporting or not supportive, if they are complaining about team members they just were pushed into the teams and so forth, we need to start this conversation. So it could be that the product owner is responsible commercially because he's responsible for ROI. Maybe he has the last word, I don't know. Scrum Master makes sure that this capability is within the team. Maybe he takes it himself. And maybe some of the team members is keen on, yeah, I'm keen on that topic, I pull that. Okay? So there's no right or wrong, but you need to start the conversation. So the second challenge that people in procurement have, or at this intersection, is how to select key partners. So even Alex Osterwalder, I had a chat with him, he's also Swiss, so not so big of a distance. How do you find key partners? He said, well, that's a heck of a challenge. So how can we do that? Just two examples. So we were setting up a Scrum team to source an ERP system, but not just source, it was also for delivery. So no more handoffs. It was the combined duty from idea till value delivered. Other people call it like DevOps on steroids, because in DevOps we have added all the capabilities of the development. Now we are adding all the capabilities from idea till development, if you will. So we did that. Product owner was head of finance, and they did everything. We had even a guy from procurement in the team, partially a lawyer. And what we did, we sourced an ERP in just 2 days. Maybe you have no clue what that means. So the benchmark is 12 months, and then you're fast, traditionally. Now 2 days is a bit of marketing, to be fair. We had 4 weeks prep time. So we had to set up the team, we had to gather the needs together with the end user, we did some design thinking workshops and so forth, we down-selected the solution and the vendors. And then finally, and that's this image here, we invited 3 competitors in the same room like this, simultaneously, to co-create the solution, their proposals, an Agile contract, and to set up, extend our Scrum team. 2 days. It's possible. Sometimes we have longer, sometimes we have, depending on the case. So this is lived collaboration over contract negotiation. If I may remind you the Agile Manifesto. And by the way, the vendors, they also liked it. They appreciated it. They said, well, it's a tons of work to do the proposals, and then you have all these questions, nobody could give you a good answer, right? And then we have these assumptions, which obviously always are wrong, and that drives then the price unnecessarily, and then we don't get the deal. So we had 2 days to talk about all assumptions, risks, fears, everything. And as just one side note to that case, during the workshop we realized that the licensing model was a huge cost driver. So if you take this assumption or the other, it could be double the price. So what was the solution? We immediately stopped the workshop and asked the 3 competitors again, they're not partners, competitors. If they could forget to be competitors for the next 15 minutes, and if they could co-create the optimal licensing model together. Collaboration over contract negotiation. Another case, by the way, if you want to know more about the approach, it's called Lean Natural Procurement. You could look it up, how we source services, complex stuff in a more agile way. And this is a case from the government. It's a $1 billion case, sourcing new trains. What? Trains. I mean, my first reaction was, is that really complex? It's almost maybe just complicated. Yes, it's complex. Fortunately, it is. So as we came in, they said our current prediction from the idea we need new trains till new trains have been delivered is 8 years. Now you could say, yeah, it's government, no wonder. But I say, no, it's not acceptable, and their leadership agreed, said, we need to find other ways to do that. So we came in and we looked at how they're currently working, and it turned out that they have a tendency to over-specify. They were focusing on the solution, on the how. We encountered 8,000 specifications in the first period of the specifications. So we said, what if we go to the what, to the needs, user stories if you like. And by the way, you guys are writing the specs in the lighthouse. What if we invite not just the citizens, the passengers, families with kids, disabled people and so forth, in a train, but also people from cleaning, maintenance, security and regulation. And we just did. In 4 hours, we had our specs. And if you take that fast forward, we would publish a tender with maybe 10 pages instead of thousands. We would attract the suppliers to join us, because then now it becomes interesting also for the smaller suppliers. And we would then, as a cross-functional team, same story, right? Cross-functional team with all the experts we need. We would then down select, and instead of asking them to write a proposal, we currently have ideas like, why don't we invite the vendors with their most matching train physically? So bring your train, and we walk the train with the stakeholders so that they can say, we don't like this color, we need to have this handle here, and everything like that, and we could be done in just a week or so. And then, if you're still too risk averse and don't want to spend 1 billion at once, we could start with a prototype and roll out one train, then another, and so forth. So the strategy of the traditional approach is they spend not 1 billion, they spend maybe 500 million, and then they say we are really clever to mitigate risk. We have options to pull another order. So what they do, they pull another order 10 years later. Now if you're clever, 10 plus 8 years, they get 18 years old trains. And we had the chance to speak with the vendors, the manufacturers of train, and they said, well, that's a huge problem because they focus so much on the solution. We need to custom build components with vendors, so again, sub-suppliers, we don't want to work with anymore, and we need to reinvent the wheel again and so forth. So huge potential also here. Challenge number 3, how to manage a partnership more agile. Therefore, I brought with me a little video. It's a parody. So imagine this is, depending on your context, sales and supplier, or buyer side and supplier side. Put yourself in the shoes and watch the video.
But I can't trust him. I feel like he doesn't respect or appreciate all the things I do for him.
Hold on. Let's let her finish expressing how she feels.
Well, let's start by looking at the forecasts he creates. They are extremely inaccurate. He knows. It's a never-ending headache when dealing with inventory and service levels, but he just doesn't care.
I get greedy about my forecasts at every one of our meetings. Believe me, I wish I had time to provide her with the information she needs. But how about some appreciation for the revenue that I bring in, huh?
Well, how much was the appreciation for what I do? You have no idea how complex it is to plan and manage new product introductions, distribution, procurement, and also delivering what you need so that you can focus on selling. All I'm asking for is a little more consideration, future warnings, and accurate forecasts.
I want this to work. You know that I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I just want to make a little profit.
All right, so that's fun, but it's also most probably your reality. So I want to invest 1 minute just in pairs or at your table, talk about your current relationship. If you're a vendor, with your suppliers, with your buyer side, with your clients, and the other way around. So just 1 minute, very short. Oops. Doesn't work.
You see myself, so we kind of have this why we are the animal circle shared money.
Thank you. Sorry, my animation somehow didn't work out, so it's not my day on technology. So what I personally really like is about this video, even though it's a parody, we want to make this work, right? Even though sometimes we have struggles or we were not involved in this selection, but we somehow we are in the same boat, or in the same storm, as we heard this morning. And I think we need to come from a buyer-supplier relationship, which is kind of weird. It's not on the same eye level. You just need to supply. It's just the wording. We need to come to a true partnership. And then we need to start dealing with our struggles, and maybe also with hers, to find a balance where we could work with. So there, by the way, you could bring in all your agile leadership skills. It's a lot. It's a lot to do on that end, on the culture side. Culture mismatches, cultural misunderstandings. So, what we also learned with all the cases we were able to support is that we are building trust. And trust is not just here, it's not a gift. We are developing trust. And those workshops, by the way, are a great opportunity to get in touch. Sometimes it's the first time, sometimes it's a trusted partner already, to get in touch with the real people that do the job. Sometimes they really meet the very first time. It's that's weird. So we don't want to bring the procurement people and the sales people together. They're there too. They play their role. But we want to bring the people that do the job together. And if we have built this trust, we need to support that. So sometimes it's as hard to source internally if you're in a big corporate, but if it comes to cash out, contracts are in place, right? So a good example here, how this could work, we have made with the Auckland Council in New Zealand. So we also set up a cross-functional team, set up such a workshop, and part of that it was the co-creation of an actual contract. Now, first thing, maybe you're not so familiar in the topic, but a lot of people think an agile contract is a statement of work. Nope. Not just. Look up your NDAs, for example. How much on the same eye level are they? How much trust? How much are they following agile values, principles? So we need to look at the whole contractual framework. So in this case, they had the challenge that it was already clear from the start that we had so much diversity in the kind of services that one contract won't fit them all. So we had, lucky us, we had a lawyer in the team, and he came up with a very, very weird idea. He said, what if you just trust? And we were like, hey, you are the lawyer. Didn't expect that. But what are we doing? I mean, we need to have a contractual framework in place. And he came up with a great idea. We put together, initially we thought of one-pager, we ended up with 3, with principles and clauses and so forth that were important to us, and we put them in first priority so that at the workshop, the 2 days workshop, we never ever read through their contracts. We just said, just trust. So if something, we are overruling yours if something is not compliant with that. And we just have to talk about these 3 pages. Great way to do it. If you think of managing a partner, then this is like the outcome of your first sprint, right? So the selection process. But think about it. Developing trust, developing a partnership. What if we can do that in an incremental way too? So we, the Lean Natural Procurement Alliance, we have multiple partnerships with other alliances, And instead of going through a 6-month process where we at the end sign a partnership agreement, we have 2-week sprints. And we set a sprint goal. Said, okay, what can we do that fits both of us? Let's organize a webinar, publish something, I don't know. And then we take it from there. So think about it. If Agile partner management becomes a capability of your Scrum team and Scrum teams, we should also iteratively develop and review our partnership. Oops. If you have built this trust, crazy stuff can happen. AGCO is the biggest, second biggest manufacturing company in agriculture. So they build tractors. And they said, procurement was approaching us because traditional procurement, they were looking for a savings. They said, well, nah, we're the wrong ones. Can we turn that program in an innovation program? I said, yeah, why not? And if we can do some savings as we go along, even better. So they came up with a crazy idea. They call that product clinic. So we invited multiple vendors, current vendors, their internal marketing, product management, people from the line, from their sites, plus also competitors. And we asked them, we really put a tractor into its pieces. We asked them, what could be improved? Other materials, simplified, less components, other manufacturing methods. And so we got into a cross-company innovation kind of collaboration. Quite cool story, I find. So, what's in it for me? No, for we. So not just for you, but all of us and your customers, your suppliers. I want to emphasize first, this area has a huge impact. I was shocked as I heard the first time this number. Procurement and or sales, depending on the industry, are responsible for up to 80% of revenue. Not profit, revenue. So if we can tweak that, if we can improve that, it will have a direct impact on company success. And we are talking about this ERP case was a 400% improvement on time to market, 80% savings, right? And 800% improvement of time to market is easy going if we have the right constraints. But also other topics. I'm currently in contact with responsible CPOs, not chief product owners, chief procurement officer in the public sector of Australia, government. And they say, we want to have an impact on sustainability, on circular economy, and all this stuff. And we concluded as simple as that. What if we just improve the selection criteria? It will have a massive impact even on society. Not just on our business, but on the whole society. So what's in it for we? Well, you all have great outside of the box thinking. That's exactly what they need. They face the same problems that we faced in the delivery. So Agile coaching is definitely something they need. You just need to learn or to pair with somebody that speaks their language. So get in touch with those folks. By the way, if you run such a strategic sourcing initiative, you're immediately on the leadership level, no going up the hierarchy, you're immediately there. If you run a cross-functional team on that level, all the people we need, we usually infect the whole organization, and more we get agile transformations started in procurement. How weird is that? So what they also need is capability building. You guys are trainers. Leadership, I mentioned. Scrum, it's our operating model. Design thinking, you name it. Get in touch. They appreciate it. And as I mentioned, agile transformations. We have done global study with 15 other alliances. Just 16% of all companies that responded are currently including their partners into their agile transformation. Huge potential. Huge. So it's up to you. Join the show, make some business, and help us transform the world. So thank you very much. You could download the slides here, or I will also share the link then with the community. Dankjewel. I'm in time. Awesome.